poetry? It has to have a distinct meaning to it. So that one, we can look at some poems and think, okay, a lot of really good poems, they have distinct meanings to them. But then what exactly do you mean by a meaning? Do you mean that like we have to look at it and find something deeper, we have to analyze it, and there has to be like a meaning underneath the poem? Yeah, people write things according to their feelings. Okay, so people write things according to their feelings. And and then there's a whole other thing with poetry is that sometimes, if you look at poems, it might seem that they really don't have like a deeper meaning, that they're just about an experience or about an object, and it doesn't seem that they have like this, that they're a comment on social issues or something. And so not all poetry has to have a super deep meaning. Poetry, we can write poetry about things that have happened to us, like being publicly humiliated while eating lunch, and it could still very well be poetry. So poetry is really what you make of it. It's hard to define. You can't say poetry has to rhyme, or poetry has to be this many lines long, because poetry is a medium that really kind of fights its way outside of the box pretty easily. And so unlike stories where you say, there's a story arc, it has a character and all that, poetry doesn't have that many specifications, which really lets you do a lot of things with it. It can be however long or short you want it to be, so you have a lot of choice. And poems are great vehicles for expressing emotion. And if you, let's say that you choose a type of poem that you want to write specifically, like a haiku, and you say, I'm going to write a haiku today. Then you give yourself some restrictions, and so you give yourself, okay, I'm going to have it 5 syllables, so you can kind of create, when you create different types of poetry, you can create some rules. So raise your hand if you've ever been stuck trying to think of ideas. You can raise your hand. I think we've all at some point or another been stuck trying to think of ideas, whether it's trying to explain to our parents why there's suddenly a lot of fudge missing from the fridge, or trying to think of a beautiful poetic idea. So to help us think about topics of poetry, we're going to take a look at some possible inspirations. Where do we get those ideas for poetry from? So for those of you who read Dancing Fingers, where do you think I got some of my inspirations from for certain poems?
Your usual life.
Your usual life, yeah, very accurate. Pretty much a lot of my poem ideas came from just what I saw and what I did. And so if you look at Dancing Fingers, I write a lot of poems, like a talk show host. I think I had the chance to be like on a lot of TV shows, and so I was exposed to many different talk show hosts. And also, I think that was around the same time as the video show on Oprah. I'm not totally sure. That was pretty awesome. I never got to be on the show video. So yeah, I was super inspired, so I wrote talk show host all about. We were talking about these different TV shows. That was super cool and fun. What are some other areas? Like with the Perfect Club, I said I got it from watching the news and be angry, sort of sad about different things. What are some other areas where you might get inspiration for poetry? From the From the future? Oh, teacher, from the teacher. Okay, yeah, definitely. If you have nature. Oh, nature. Okay. Sorry, I'm not decoding the sounds correctly. 2 mistakes. That's worse than usual. Okay, so yeah, from nature, very good. If you go around this beautiful walk in the woods and you're looking at all the plants and you suddenly have this really inspired idea, and have you guys started like looking at poems from the past and kind of analyzing them? Somewhat. Okay, so when I think you're all 7th grade, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So especially in high school language arts, and analyzing poetry is a big deal. And like kind of looking at where did the poets get their ideas? What are they writing about? What do they mean with the sentence here? We're only looking at a couple of poems. So I'm not going to ask you any questions. So definitely, when you think about nature, and that's inspired a ton of poetry from really all time periods. Today, 1800s, 1600s, whenever you go back to. So poets have different ways of writing about nature, though. So there are some poets who are writing like an ode to a season. They're saying how awesome autumn is, or spring, or whatever. And then you have other poets who are writing very matter of fact. So again, different ways to do that. So, inspiration. You can get a lot of inspirations for poetry from the things you see around: trees, houses, coats, sidewalks, plastic containers, snowflakes on the ground. Whatever objects can catch your interest, or even if you look around the room, maybe randomly pick one thing to zoom in on. For instance, you could look at the ear of the person sitting next to you, unless they want to speak out that, and decide to write a poem about that. So a good example of a poem that you can be Shakespeare's. A great example of a poem that was just really written about an object is found online. The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. And this one's pretty famous. It's actually in a lot of literature textbooks. The Red Wheelbarrow. And you might think, well, the Red Wheelbarrow, that's a pretty matter-of-fact name, isn't it? Well, it fits because the poem is very matter-of-fact. Here's the poem. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow laced with rainwater beside the white chickens. The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams is really just about a red wheelbarrow. You can look at it, but can any of you, why don't you give it a try? So what do you think the Red Wheelbarrow is about, looking at it?
It's just very matter of fact and just simply about a red wheelbarrow.
Yeah, exactly. As far as you can look at it, there's not much you can't slap a deeper meaning kind of analyzation on it. It's kind of hard because really, if this wasn't it's almost about as long as a sentence, this entire poem. So it's not a long poem, and there's not many words to work with. It's a red wheelbarrow and the rain and chickens. So this is a great example of a poem that is inspired by something, obviously a red wheelbarrow, and has this image. So we imagine a red wheelbarrow, we imagine a place watered by the white chickens. But William Carlos Williams did say, I have to write about something really deep, right? I have to make this poem super long, I have to rhyme it out, and make it super deep and poetic and everything. He just wrote it, and it's a poem. So, what are some objects in your everyday life that you think might make a good poem? Flowers. Okay, sure. Flowers are an awesome topic for poetry. I have so far stayed away from flowers just because I've read so many poems about having them in them. But that gives you a perfect opportunity to look at flowers in a new way. So, everybody has written like odes to flowers, and they start with, I think William Wordsworth has a really famous poem where he's like in a field of daffodils and stuff. So flowers make an appearance a lot in poetry, but the awesome thing about poetry is that, unlike stories, when somebody writes about vampires and everybody copies that, then it becomes a little bit, nobody wants to read another vampire story. With poetry, though, somebody writes about a red wheelbarrow, you can write a poem about a red wheelbarrow. As long as it's not copying exactly. There's so many different ways to look at flowers or wheelbarrows differently. So yeah, great. Write about flowers. What are some other topics that you might find in everyday life? Flowers,
The carnival.
The carnival. Okay, great. So how would you write about the carnival? Would you be like describing it, or would you be describing the field? What kind of angle would you take?
I would describe what I would be looking at and the different lights and sounds over here.
Okay, so describing what you'd be looking at, different lights and sounds you could hear. So with the carnival, just like flowers, you could have so many ways of looking at it. You could do it exactly like creating this image for the reader to kind of be in your experience. You could tell a narrative poem, and a narrative poem is just basically telling a story. So you could tell a poem about going to the carnival and how it's going to happen. You could have a very image-based poem where it's kind of like you might describe the tapestry of what the tent is made out of or something like that, where you really zoom into something. So there's lots of ways to do that. And one more thing from your everyday life, which I know you see, that might make it difficult. Couch. Okay, great. Actually, that would be a really good one because, I'm pretty sure there have been homes about flowers. I'm pretty sure there have been homes about carnivals that are pretty famous, but I've never run across a really famous home about a couch. So maybe you'll be the first. I'll see it in literature textbooks of 2015 or something. So I'm going to write down, and so about the couch, what would be your ideas? Would you write like a very matter of fact home about the couch, kind of like Fred Wheelbarrow, or do you think you'd want to expand on kind of like how it feels and what you were sitting there and all of that? What is your answer?
Really not sure.
Okay. That's absolutely fine. I always say we write a poem at the end, but I feel super inspired by this right now. Why don't we together, let's come up with a poem about a couch. It'll be a short poem, not like an epic, but let's write about a couch. So how would we write a poem about a couch? Get some ideas here. Any ideas? I'm sorry? The audio is super garbled. Okay, I heard cushions and not much else.
Mustard stains. Mustard stains on the cushions.
Okay, Buster sleeps on the cushions. Oh, mustard stains. Sorry. Okay. I don't know what's wrong with my hearing. Okay, mustard stains on the cushions. Great. So we start with mustard stains on the cushions, creating this image. And you know what we do with mustard stains on the cushions? What does mustard stains on the cushions tell us about people who own the couch?
They're sloppy.
That they're, maybe a little sloppy, that they eat food on their couch, maybe they're eating food while they're watching TV or in the living room. So you guys see how already with one image, mustard stains on the cushions, we learn so much about people. And that's kind of the amazing thing about poetry is that you can capture so much in so little. Of course, we could also be totally wrong, and the people with the mustard stains on the cushions could actually be very neat and respectable people who had visitors come over and grab mustard out of their fridge and squirt it all over their couch. But, the more likely thing is the assumption. Is there any way you could turn the lights on a tiny bit more? It's sort of weird just like seeing your shirt and nothing else. Because like that's the only thing I can see. I can pick out white, but it's really dark outside. Okay, thank you so much. So mustard stains on the cushions. What should our next line be?
I ate a donut and fell asleep.
Okay. I ate a donut and fell asleep. On the couch or just I ate a donut and fell asleep?
Well, I fell on the couch and then I saw it float. Doesn't make a rhythm.
Is there a consensus on this? What our next line is?
I ate a donut and fell asleep on the couch. Too bad.
Okay, there we go. Mustard stains on the cushions. I ate a donut and fell asleep on the couch. Sorry. So right here we've again conjured up an image. You see somebody, and even though we haven't described the person who's eating a donut and falling asleep on a couch, we have our stereotypes, we have our automatic assumptions, and so I'm guessing that many of us are probably imagining the same kind of person. Okay, so mustard stains on the cushions. I ate a donut and fell asleep on the couch. What else?
My parents told me not to slouch on the couch.
Okay. My parents told me not to slouch on the couch. And did you? What happened? Where's this going?
Yeah, slouch. Spilled my soda.
I slouched and spilled my soda. Okay, so this is becoming sort of a Diary of a Couch, apparently. Well, actually, Diary of a Couch is a good title, but that'll be more